Hello and welcome back to the Birdcage. I'm Jack Kenna, and today we'll be recapping Creighton's 73-77 loss against Texas A&M and previewing their game against Notre Dame tomorrow at noon in the seventh place game in the Players Era Festival competition. The Creighton Bluejays, let's put it this way, did not play their best game. However, there were some positives and then there were some negatives that we'll touch on. Pop Isaacs showed that he can be a scorer on this Creighton team, which is something we are desperately missing. I think, well, I guess we weren't missing it. There was a little stretch where I felt like Pop Isaacs was trying to get kind of back in that rhythm the way he looked against Purdue. And he found it. He's had a pretty good last few games against Nebraska, San Diego State, Texas A&M. Obviously, we've lost all of those games, but I think Pop Isaacs has looked pretty good for the most part. That's good. He had 25 points against A&M. Didn't shoot it in as good, 6 of 15 from the field, but 5 of 10 from behind the arc, and that's something a lot more positive than what we saw against San Diego State, where he shot 2 of 10. He had 4 turnovers. That was something we're gonna have to clean up. We'll talk about the turnovers later because that is a big negative for the team itself. But he was one of the main culprits. He was turning the ball over a little too much, some careless turnovers, some unforced turnovers. We'll dive into that a little later. Jackson McAndrew started the game. He started the game against San Diego State, started the game again against Texas A&M, and looked pretty good. 16 points, 3 of 9 from behind the arc. So obviously you're going to want to see that percentage kind of go up a little bit more. And he shot 5 of 12 from the field. So he had a very productive day for what it's worth. I think, wow, what was that noise? I think Jackson McAndrew is one of Creighton's better players against Texas A&M. It's going to be interesting to see how he deals with physicality. San Diego State and Texas A&M are both super physical teams, but you're going to get physicality day in, day out in the Big East. He's not necessarily that big, but so far he's shown that he can kind of handle that, and he's been a good addition to the starting lineup. Stephen Ashworth's medical miracle, as they referred to it on HBO Max, he was back. Surprising. I was not expecting to see him back against A&M. Maybe against Notre Dame on Saturday or our Saturday game, dependent on who we played. But Ashworth was back. He had 4 of 9 from behind the arc. He had some pretty deep threes, and it didn't look like that ankle was bothering him all too much. I don't know if Mac had him on a minutes restriction or not, but it looked like Ashworth did look pretty good on that ankle. I know after our performance against San Diego State, he might have wanted to kind of rush back himself, but it didn't look like that ankle was really bugging him all that much. So that's going to be something that we'll look out for tomorrow when we play Notre Dame and the near future. Obviously, getting Ashworth at full health back to what he was doing is going to be good for us. But he had a pretty solid game. Creighton in general didn't have a good game. But those 3 guys that I've kind of highlighted were the best of the bunch. Jemiah Neal had a pretty poor game. 3 of 10 from the field, 1 of 5 from deep, 7 points. But he contributed in other ways. As much as upsetting as it's been watching Jemiah Neal just not find his rhythm offensively, he's contributed on the glass and by finding his teammates open. 7 rebounds yesterday, 6 assists, 3 turnovers. Again, it's not Neal. It's a team thing. We'll talk about it later. Ryan Kolkbrenner's been missing. He's been missing for the past few games, and it's become apparent. And I don't know what the plan is. I know there will be a plan because I know McDermott is too good of an offensive coach to let one of the best big men in the country kind of go invisible at times. And they're throwing a lot of different defenses at him, mixing it up. And we're really struggling trying to get it into Kolkbrenner. We're going to figure it out. One thing I have here is it's only November. Thank God. We'll figure it out. We always do. I feel like Creighton the past few years have kind of had these not preseason struggles, but like early season struggles for sure. Colorado State 2 years ago was Nebraska. We've had some we've had some pretty upsetting ones. UNLV the past few years, it's almost become habit. Not good, not a good habit, but it's been something that we've been able to bounce back from in recent years, and that's going to continue this year. I know we're making it sound like it's life or death. It's not. It's November. We will get right. We will get right. So let's talk about some positives about the Texas A&M game and kind of the Players Era Festival itself. There's not very many. This is going to be a little quick. One positive is Stephen Ashworth is back. Stephen Ashworth was much needed. I was hoping we'd be able to hold down the fort until Ashworth was able to get fully healthy. I just don't think that was the case. He was back. He looked really good. But if we don't have a Stephen Ashworth, this team's not going to reach Creighton potential. And so it's really good that he's back. The second positive is Jackson McAndrew's contribution. I knew Jackson McAndrew was going to be a good Creighton player. I did. You're not ranked that high. You aren't able to do the things that you can do if you're not a good basketball player. However, I was really curious to see what his impact on a Creighton team that is pretty veteran would be. And it turns out that he's going to be a starter and he's going to be a very key piece to this, which is good. It's also a little scary. I was hoping, we'll talk about it later. I was hoping we could get some production from Green, Trout, Miller that would kind of make Jackson and McAndrews not shift, but kind of development, ease into it. And he hasn't gotten that opportunity. He's had to come in and make an impact. And to his credit, he's been doing pretty good. One of the other things that I think we did a really good job of, especially in the first half of the Texas A&M game, was forcing them to shoot tough shots. On my sheet, I have forced A&M and Wade Taylor to take low percentage shots. It's true because they did. Texas A&M as a team shot 39% from the field, 21% from three. So to Creighton's credit, they did an extremely well job, specifically in the first half of forcing Texas A&M to take tough shots and shots that aren't very high percentage. They figured it out in the second half. Texas A&M shot a much better percentage, but still throughout the entire game, you look at those numbers and you're pretty good. You're pretty okay defensively with the shots that Texas A&M was shooting. I've rewatched it a few times. Some of those shots, you're like, that was good defense. Wade Taylor specifically, you forced Wade Taylor to take tough shots. 19 shots, 7 makes, 3 of 9 from behind the arc. He had a few tough three-pointers, a few momentum three-pointers, had a three-pointer on Mason Miller with around anywhere from 6 to 4 minutes left in the game. And that was a real big momentum shifter for Texas A&M. But overall, the defensive effort that Creighton had against Texas A&M was much better than the effort and the defensive, I guess I don't know how you say it. Well, Texas A&M wasn't making the shots that San Diego State was making point blank, but I feel like the defense in the Texas A&M game was better than the defense that we got in the San Diego State game. And the last positive is it's only November. You're going to hear that a lot throughout this video because it's true. I'm going to kind of dig into some of the negatives of the last game. And the great part about it is it's only November. McDermott will have this team rocking by March. He always does. It's just unfortunate because as fans, we want this transition to be as fast as possible, and we just don't have the answers to that. I'm going to start it off by mentioning Fedor. We don't know when he's going to get cleared, if he's going to get cleared. And it's a little concerning now because I was under the impression he was going to kind of get cleared before the Nebraska game. I really hope that comes around because I would love to see him suit up for a Creighton or in a Creighton jersey. And I think he's going to be a very key part to kind of the construction and the identity of this team. And we're going to have to kind of get him going. And hopefully it's sooner rather than later. I don't really know what the NCAA is doing, but I hope that they can get that underway pretty soon. The first negative I have here is Jemiah Neal's shooting percentage. He hasn't shot it great. in Las Vegas. He's actually 5 of 19 from the field the last two games. But it's his 3-point percentage all season has been pretty bad. He's shooting 17% from three over the last, and he is taking, sorry, my notes are kind of goofed up. I had to scribble out some stuff. And he's taking over three-pointers a game, which is a little shocking. The last two games, I understand the San Diego State game where Stephen Ashworth was out. He's 1 for 10 from behind the arc in the last two games. And his make was a heavily contested make in the first half of the Texas A&M game, kind of towards the end of the first half. Not a three-pointer that you necessarily want to be taking. And he's taken a few of those questionable three-pointers, contested three-pointers, and they haven't gone in, and they haven't gone in all season. And I don't know right now if Jemiah Neal is a capable three-point maker because he hasn't shown it yet. That's something I'm going to be very curious about because realistically, the last two games he's taken 10 of them, and I think they've all just been turnovers. Nothing really inspiring. Even his make, I thought was a crazy shot. I'm not impressed with the looks that we're able to even get for Neal because I don't think we're really drawing sets up for him. I think it's kind of in the rhythm of the offense, and some of them are even heavily contested. It's just been a rough shooting week for Neal. It's been a rough shooting week for Creighton, and I'm hoping that we'll be able to figure this out when everything kind of gets situated with Fedor, when we kind of get back home. Hopefully tomorrow we can get this situated, figured out, because it's not just Neal, it's the team itself. This team struggled to shoot. I'm going to start it off with our identity, let it fly, the three-pointers. We're shooting under 30% as a team behind the arc this season, which is actually going to put us 295th in the country. That's bad. You don't need me to sit here and tell you how bad that is. That's poor. And you would think, because we're not a very high capable three-point shooting team so far this year, we wouldn't take as many. We would try to look into our All-American caliber center, Ryan Kolkbrenner, but we haven't. We're 13th in the country in attempts. Those numbers don't align. I wish they did, but they don't. It's struggling. We're chucking up a lot of threes, especially the past three games, and we haven't been making a whole bunch of them. And even as a team, our field goal percentage is pretty poor. We're shooting 45% from the field, which will put us at 180th in the country. So that's not really good either. Ryan Kolkbrenner was shooting 90% before this festival, and he's not anymore, obviously. But when Ryan Kolkbrenner was shooting that high, we still didn't have a very good shooting percentage, and that's something we're definitely going to have to figure out. We're going to have to figure out how to get open looks, good looks, feed it into Kolkbrenner some more. It's just something we haven't been able to do. And I'm really hoping we'll be able to figure it out because if we can't get Kolkbrenner touches, it's going to be a long, long year. There should be no reason why Ryan Kolkbrenner is shooting the ball 5 times a game. Ryan Kolkbrenner should be anywhere from 12 to 20 in my eyes because he's that efficient and he's that effective. And when you can get the ball inside, it'll open up the shooters like Pop Isaac, Stephen Ashworth, Jackson McAndrews, Trout, Miller, all of those guys for easier shots. Right now, we're not doing that. We're still hucking the threes, but they're not falling. And I think our percentage would go up if we just got the ball inside more and made teams guard us inside. If teams have to start throwing multiple guys at Kolkbrenner, that is going to open up better shots for our shooters. And we haven't been able to do that so far this year. We need to find a way to get Ryan Kolkbrenner more shots. And I think Greg McDermott will find a way. It's just upsetting that we haven't seen it so far in the past 3 games. Kolkbrenner's been kind of invisible. This Creighton team fouled a lot against A&M. Not an absurd amount, 17 times, but they average under 12 fouls a game, and they fouled 17. Some of those fouls were because of our mental lapses. We had a mental lapse with about 80 seconds left in the game. Texas A&M had a sideline out of bounds. They threw it to a player kind of on the right wing, almost in the right corner. He was unguarded, tacked to the rim. Kalkbrenner had to foul him. At that point, we were down one or two, and that was a really big defensive play for Creighton, and they weren't mentally prepared. Kalkbrenner had to foul, and that was just kind of a definition of this season in this game. Just it didn't look like we were mentally prepared when we stepped out on the floor. And obviously that's not typical for a Creighton team, for a Greg McDermott coached team. And it was really upsetting. That was one of the plays that dictated the game. This Creighton team is averaging 13.6 foul or turnovers per game. And let me tell you, that's not going to win you very many big, important games. They turned the ball over a lot against Texas A&M. And in fact, I don't even have a number for you guys right now. I'm going to try to find one. But it was poor. It was not good. It was hard watch. I'm thinking the number that just popped up to me was, let me find it, 15 turnovers. So no, this Creighton team is not taking care of the ball really well, and Greg McDermott's touched on that in his press game and his post game, or in his post game, and even his media availability before the games. That Creighton needs to do a better job of not turning the ball over, and we haven't done that this year. 13.6 turnovers per game. Last year they were at 10.6, so we're turning the ball over three more times a game, which is three more possessions that we could have to try to score. And in close games like this, I know San Diego State wasn't a close game, but in close games like this, and we turned the ball over a lot against Nebraska, in games like that, possessions matter. And recently, we haven't been doing a very good job of handling the basketball. And some of these turnovers have even been unforced. Is that the right word? Not forced, unenforced. They've been our mistakes, not anything the defense is doing, but our mistakes have caused these turnovers. One of the other negatives from this game and the tournament itself is we have yet to see any production outside of McAndrew in that four position. Trout, Green, Miller have gone 0 for 9 from the field in this festival. And those are all three players I expected to have a high, really key breakout roles this year, and it just hasn't happened that way yet. I think out of all three, Trout's easily been the best out of all of them. He's done a lot of good things on the glass, and he's shown that he's capable of stretching the floor. And I know Mason Miller and Jason Green are working into different roles now. Obviously, without Fedor, we're kind of still figuring out how our rotation works. And Miller is coming off of that leg injury. And Green has done a lot of good things on the glass and even defensively, as much shade as he gets. I we need some scoring out of those guys. We really do. Our bench points have been lacking. We had two bench points against Texas A&M, and those were Fred King. Fred King actually had a pretty good festival so far. But I would love to see Trout, Green, and Miller kind of get it going against Notre Dame on Saturday. And I would really, really like them to step up because they are going to be leaders on this team for this year and even the next few years. And I really hope that we can start to get them going pretty soon because we're going to need them come conference play. And so far, dis they haven't been disappointing. They just haven't been what we expected them to be. This team looks like it's not meshing well, and there is little chemistry on the court. And I don't know what that is, but it looks like our offense is really stagnant. And I don't know if that's just early season Creighton offense or if that's coaching, if McDermott's kind of letting them kind of go out and play and they're just kind of standing there. But it looks like this team the chemistry is lacking and it doesn't look very pretty at times, which is unfortunate because I think Creighton has one of the most beautiful offenses when it can get going, and that just hasn't been the case this year. Hopefully, we can see something come tomorrow. I know Notre Dame is going to be a test. Both teams are 4-3. You don't want to go into this game if you're Creighton and lose your fourth straight. It's going to be a much needed game for the Creighton Bluejays. But Notre Dame feels the same way. I mean, I think Notre Dame's also on a 3-game losing streak, and they've lost the last 2 games. They had a tough test against Rutgers. They fell in overtime the first night, opening night, and then they played Houston, and that game wasn't extremely close. So they're going to look for some revenge as well. I'm going to finish this off by saying it could be worse. We could be the Yukon Huskies. They went 0-3 in Maui. Dan Hurley kind of lost his cool a few times down there, and they've been getting, I think, a little more slander than we have because we lost our point guard for a game. But it's nice to see that we're not the only Big East team struggling right now. And I will finish this off by once again saying it is only November. A lot of things are going to change. A lot of things are going to happen between now and March. It's going to be exciting to see because I don't think this Creighton team's done. I think this Creighton team still has a lot of potential. We just need to hit it. Hopefully, we can get back on track. Tomorrow, the Creighton Bluejays take on Notre Dame, I think, at noon. And I think this one's on TBS, so we're not going to have to go on HBO Max to watch the Blue Jays anymore. Thank God that was a horrific experience. But that is all that I have here. I will be back doing a recap for the Creighton Notre Dame game tomorrow and kind of recapping the entire tournament itself. A lot of these points will probably still be there on the recap, but it's good. We have to talk about it when we have another game to kind of compare them against. But that is all that I have. The Creighton Blue Jays fell 73-77 and will be back in action tomorrow at noon. Until the recap, you guys might see another video. I might try to post a KU video because I know that they play Furman tomorrow. So stay on the lookout for that. But until next time, I'll see ya.